The Assembly will now hear a statement by His Excellency Daniel Kablan Duncan, Vice President of the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire. May I request protocol to escort His Excellency?
Tengo el honor.
I have great pleasure in welcoming His Excellency Daniel Kablan Duncan, Vice President of the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire, to address the General Assembly.
Excellencies, Madam Maria Fernandez Espinosa Graces, President of the 73rd Session of the United Nations General Assembly, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, heads of state and government, Mr. Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, distinguished delegates, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Madam President, I wish to congratulate you upon your brilliant election to head our General Assembly, and I wish to extend to you on behalf of the President of the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire, His Excellency Mr. Alassane Ouattara, wish you every success in discharging your mandate and addressing the priorities therein. We also wish to congratulate your predecessor, Mr. Miroslav Lajcik, for the high-quality work done during his mandate. I wish specifically to pay tribute to our Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, for his unstinting efforts and his robust determination to strengthen the important role played by the United Nations. Madam President, our session opens during an international context that has been punctuated by numerous challenges and uncertainties. These are gradually chipping away at our capacity to deliver on a collective response to more adequately tackle threats to international peace and security. This is compounded by challenges related to humanitarian and health crises, extreme poverty, violations against human rights and democracy. Our shared organization and the current world appear to be losing sight of the purpose that is to protect those most vulnerable, to promote fairer and more inclusive governance, and to forge a genuine shared destiny among nations. This observation both justifies and makes necessary the existence of the United Nations. It is a reminder of the fact that shifts on the international stage, changes in international actors, should not be done to its detriment. Hence, there's an urgent need to accelerate the modernization of our organization and to shore up the bedrock of the Charter of the United Nations. This has been called upon through the theme of the general debate of our General Assembly, namely making the United Nations relevant to all people, global leadership, and shared responsibility for peaceful, equitable, and sustainable societies. Indeed, owing to the fact that it has achieved but little progress in combating hunger worldwide and extreme poverty, given the proliferation of human crises and tragedy, the flow of displaced and refugees, these continue to remain a great source of concern for the international community. Hence, the above-mentioned theme is both relevant and represents a call for reinventing the actions undertaken by the United Nations and the means of collaboration amongst member states. Madam, the challenges and the uncertainty facing our world today should prompt member states to adopt and embrace a shared vision of the central role and the value of the United Nations in crafting our collective response. Hence, it is important for them to resolutely retake ownership of the United Nations, for the United Nations to become an organization for all peoples, reflecting the ideal of the Founding Fathers. To achieve this, one of the priorities is to restore the United Nations full moral authority, for the United Nations to be able to act and to ensure respect for its resolutions with support of member states in all the vast fields of collective action for the benefit of people. The United Nations stands at a crossroads. It needs to meet various expectations which will determine both its future and effectiveness. To that end, Côte d'Ivoire, as has been stated repeatedly by President Alassane Ouattara, is of the view that it is high time to reform the Security Council, for the Council to be more representative of the present-day world and for it to be more effective. Only a council that is genuinely united can help to enable our organization to effectively resolve the overarching security challenges, such as combating nuclear proliferation, combating terrorism, combating mass crimes, and crimes against humanity. At the same time, it is important for us to agree that the fight against climate change can only be a success if we fully acknowledge the fact that climate change constitutes a threat to international peace and security. Madam President, the solidarity which we ardently wish to behold in conflict settlement should be neither selective, nor should it be constrained to mere statements of intent. To this end, we, under all circumstances, need to arrive at a minimum moral and political consensus. This will enable our organization not to remain impassive in the light of the day-to-day images on our television screens of faces marred by the devastating consequences of conflict, war, and pandemics. This consensus should position it to play an important role in promotion of conflict prevention and reinforcement of democratic institutions. These are the only ways to combat neighbor rivalry, political, ethnic, religious tensions, and border conflicts. The responsibility of the United Nations for a renewed commitment to action needs to continue to be broadened to include the responsibility to protect. This has become a standard of public international law when it was adopted by all member states during the 2005 World Summit. I here wish to seize this opportunity to pay a richly deserved tribute to our former Secretary General Kofi Annan, who passed away on 18 August 2018, for his engagement, his involvement in the success of this summit. My delegation hails the memory of this worthy, dignified son of Africa who was among the most striking figures in United Nations history. His time-tested wealth of experience in international matters contributed through numerous initiatives to reinforcement of international peace and security. Madam President, the reality is such that no collective security system can be viable unless we seek to eradicate the root causes of socio-political difficulties that have arisen in a number of states, specifically extreme poverty. There is no doubt that the United Nations increasingly is delving into economic issues. It is more than necessary, however, for its operations to be stepped up at the social level. This is critical. Human beings need to be put at the heart of our concerns to a greater degree. This was the focus of the questions addressed by conferences organized on major issues such as the protection of childhood, protection of women, people, development, human rights. Unfortunately, these meetings resulted in few tangible results. For this reason, Côte d'Ivoire invites the international community to enforce the relevant resolutions that were adopted during this cycle of thematic conferences. These enshrine a rejection of widespread poverty, and they should help to combat illiteracy and pandemics, hunger, famine, malnutrition, and other disparities among people. Although there are justified fears that some states faced with tremendous disparities are liable to be to morph into fertile breeding ground or safe havens for terrorist groups, to areas for money laundering, hubs of international illicit drug transit and trafficking. Madam President, the human dimension, which has been embraced by the Ivorian government in crafting its development policy, consisted in adopting measures to ensure more equitable, better redistribution of the fruits of robust economic growth and more effectively combating poverty. Indeed, significant investments in infrastructure and social sectors has led to improved access to education, to water, to electricity, to healthcare, thereby significantly reducing poverty rates. In order to enhance and to accelerate this momentum, Côte d'Ivoire has endowed itself with means through the National Development Plan. This is the second National Development Plan for 2016 to 2020. We are committed to mobilizing the necessary resources to the tune of $60 billion. Our country has also adopted significant security-related measures to combat global threats shared by all states in the region. Madam President, the challenge posed by irregular migration flows is of concern to all of us. It requires a concerted management of the significant issue which largely affects young people from Africa. Côte d'Ivoire's position on this matter is shared by most countries. It has always been that this issue needs to be tackled primarily from the development lens. Indeed, only employment opportunities for self-fulfillment provided for young people, for those young people to build a future on their native soil, only that is how this issue can be resolved in a lasting way. This position of the government is validated by the fact that 26 of our people, the people living in Côte d'Ivoire, are from other lands. Côte d'Ivoire hence has received a significant amount of regional migration flows. There is no gainsaying the fact that management of the migration crisis requires commitment on the part of countries of origin, of transit, and arrival. That on this condition alone is how we can effectively combat trafficking in human persons, and this is how we can arrive at appropriate, adequate solutions to irregular migration, as was advocated during the AU-EU summit held in Abidjan in 2017. It is through accelerated implementation of the broad reforms set out in Agenda 2030 that Africa can transform into the new frontier for development. Madam, to conclude, and in our quest for solutions to the challenges with which we are faced, our collective intelligence suggests that we cooperate, engage in a more united, more democratic, and more effective organization. I thank you for your kind attention.
En nombre de la Asamblea.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank His Excellency Daniel Kablan Duncan, Vice President of the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire, for the statement just made, and I request protocol to escort His Excellency.
La Asamblea